It's 1 o'clock GMT. I'm Regid Ahmed, and coming up in this edition of the Newsroom, a dramatic turn of diplomatic events at the G7 summit as the US president tweets he's pulling out of a joint communique agreed just hours before, apparently taking offence at these remarks by the Canadian Prime Minister.
Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
Now, just before we go, we do want to bring you some news coming in. We're getting reports of a bomb explosion at a church in Indonesia's second largest city, Surabaya, in eastern Java. Police say there are no known casualties at present, but we will bring you more details as they come in on the BBC.
This is the BBC World Service. The news is coming up shortly.
Well, we begin in Indonesia, where 3 churches have been attacked this morning. Officials say suicide bombers blew themselves up, the explosions happening within a short space of time. The BBC's Rebecca Henschke is in Jakarta for us. Rebecca, can you tell us what happened?
Well, the first attack was on the Catholic Church Santa Maria.
He wasn't even commenting on them and kind of ignoring the fact. So now we'll see how things develop.
All right, Rehan Dimitri, thank you very much for that analysis, and we will have to wait and see what happens after that meeting. There have been some allegations that the site might have been tampered with because of the delay of getting the team in. If it has been, if the inspectors think it has been, will they tell us that? Will they know?
I think they would have to if they were absolutely certain that that had happened.
Once the inspectors name a chemical, if indeed they find one, is it going to change the minds of the Syrians and Russians?
No. The Russians and the Syrians and the people when you go on the internet who said that this never took place or the
Sebastian Usher. And now Fiona has some other stories from our news desk.
Former US presidential candidate Mitt Romney will have
This is the BBC World Service.
Welcome to the latest global news, recorded at 1400 hours GMT on Friday, the 23rd of February. I'm Regid Ahmed with a selection of highlights from across. A gambling tycoon who's accused of sexually assaulting women he employed has resigned as head of fundraising for the Republicans, a year after President Trump picked him for the role. Our Washington correspondent David Willis says Mr. Wynne is a close political ally of Donald Trump.
They're former business rivals who became friends. Indeed,
Are we aware whether the US president knows about these allegations and what's been happening behind the scenes?
It's been reported that the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee...
This is the BBC World Service.
Well, the BBC's Paul Henley was watching every moment of the night. I asked him whether Israel's victory was a surprise or a typical Eurovision choice.
Well, it was one of the favourites, and no, actually, it's not typically Eurovision. In fact...
Paul Henley in Lisbon with the best gig of the night, I'd say.
They made their views very clear to Donald Trump, and that he perhaps didn't like it very much.
Gary O'Donoghue there. Now, it is an extraordinary photo. I do recommend you take a look. Certainly you don't see those scenes very often coming out of the G7 summit. Well, you've been listening to the Newsroom from the BBC World Service with me, Regid Ahmed. For all of our latest stories, do go to our website, bbc.com/news, or you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at BBC Regid Ahmed.
This is the BBC World Service.